Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be finishing the shed that you see behind me. So when I bought this property, this is how the condition of the shed was, kind of half built. I will say it's maybe around 60 or 70% done, and I want to finish this. I think it's a good size for me. So before we get into what I need to do to the shed, let's take a quick look at where the status of it is now. Since obviously I can't show how it's being built to this level here, we can take a look at everything before I enclose everything and just get a good look at it. Now I will say the wood that was used by the previous builder, this is actually exterior wood. However, there is some mildew and some boards that I either can salvage or completely replace, like the one that you see right there. We've had a lot of rain and a lot of moisture. So with this being open and exposed, there's some areas in the lower section. Now for the flooring of this up underneath, there's some cinder blocks just to level this as we are on unlevel ground, as well as some larger boards running across just like you would for a deck for all of that wood to be nailed to. Let's work our way up to the roof now, where you'll see I already put some tools up here. Everything else is as you see. So all of this tar paper has not been nailed down. It's just being held by a piece of wood on both sides. There's pine needles everywhere because I am in the woods, so it has a lot of cleaning up to do. Before I can even start, I need to nail down all of this paper. I also have the drip edge guard, and then shingles will be last. So first update with the assessment starting on this roof. As you saw, I got off all the pine needles that I could for that first strip there. Now over on this left side, this is pretty soaked from the rain that we've had. So I nailed down half of that, peeled up the other half. I want to let that dry out before I do the rest of that sheet there. You also want to work from the bottom all the way to the top, because in a sense, once we lay everything down, it's going to act like a staircase. If there's water up on the top, it's going to trickle down all the way to the bottom. If you start at the top and then work your way down, you're going to have overlapment of everything below the top, and everything trickling down is going to go underneath. So it's going to get closer to the roof and all of the wood, and the moisture is just going to soak into the roof. So with that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and start with this drip edge guard, because it does need to go underneath this laminate paper. So I need to peel up the edge, which is why I didn't nail that down. And then I can do a 2-for-1. I can put the nail through this paper and through the drip edge guard. Since it's kind of hard to film doing this right at the edge of about 17-18 feet off the ground, I'm just going to talk about what I just did on the time lapse. So hopefully you can see the silver nails. I'm kind of ballparking how far apart they are. I'm not going even. I don't think it really matters. They're maybe like 12 inches apart or so, except for the corner here. So I'm just going every so often, or as much as I feel like I need to. So with the drip trail, or the drip tray, secured on the end, there is a proper way to do it, and I'm taking this sheeting and basically letting it overhang very, very slightly off of this, so that when the shingles go on top, they will stick out just a little bit farther, and all of the rain can go off and down into the woods there. I'm not doing any gutters or anything like that, since it's just one angled roof. That is what I'm doing to prevent the water from sticking close to the sides of the walls. So what I did on the corner here, in order to meet both of these together, I basically just overlapped this piece over the one on the left. So there's a little bit of a gap right there. I don't think that'll really be an issue. So it's time for another update, and I realize I haven't really been showing you guys in detail how to do this. Honestly, it's very, very repetitive, and I'm pretty much doing the same thing over and over and over. As far as going down and nailing all of these, just eyeballing about a foot or so. I will say this is my first time actually doing a project like this, and what I decided to do with this last piece, there was about 1.5 inches or so that this larger piece did not cover. So I ripped this one. It is not the straightest line. I probably could have used this entire piece, but I may need that for something else. Maybe There's another spot where I'll just add some more of that if I need to. So I think it's looking pretty good. It is a little bit short on this side, so I will use some more of that and just patch that basically once I get that side down. On to starting the shingles now. I have a few in the corner there just to show you how I'm going to start this process. Now, doing shingles is very repetitive. However, there's a few techniques that you need to know in order to start these, and then from there, it's pretty simple the rest of the way. So, in order to start laying the shingles, we're gonna start at the bottom of the roof and work our way up. So you wanna go in that direction. You also wanna have a starter strip running across the bottom. Now, I'm not doing that starter strip on the sides or the top, just on this bottom layer. And the way that I'm going to do that is underneath this shingle here, the two that I already have laid down are actually upside down. So this is how you want to position the shingles all the way up the rest of the roof. For the first layer, I have them in the opposite direction, all the way to the edge of the paper that I laid down up underneath it, as well as on that back section. And that's how I'm going to nail those down. From there, I can take the next shingle and put it in the correct position, lining it up basically right with that strip, right in the middle of that shingle. And so that's how I'm going to start. And then I can go all the way across to the other edge where I will have to do some cutting just depending on how far these strips go. I'm also going to keep all of those scraps to use for later. So coming back to the third row now, you don't want to have all these shingles in the same orientation. So when I go to put this third one on, I do not want to have it where those lines meet. I want to have it off-centered. So let's say right about here. You don't want to have all those lines going down in a straight line. So they do have to be staggered. That's where these scraps from the far end are going to come in handy. So that way I can utilize small pieces for areas like that and then continue on my way. So I made a small error in laying the starter strip. As I showed you earlier, there was a piece in the opposite direction, and then I spaced out the one in the correct orientation where I should have put that directly on that upside down piece. So this is something that I'm learning. I'm glad my dad is here to help me with this project. This is not his first time doing this. So what we were able to do is actually stuff another row of shingles underneath the starter strip. So there's the starter strips upside down, there's the row that I put down, and then we stuffed one up underneath it. So that's what you need to do in order to start it. And so with that error, the first two really weren't able to be spaced out like I mentioned earlier, with the lines being dead center. But we corrected that once we got to around row 3 or 4. So not a huge deal, just something to know. So day 2 is done. I have completed the roof. There is some trimming to do, but I just wanted to show I got pretty lucky with this last row. There is no trimming that I have to do. There's about an inch or so of overlay for the top of the shingle. So that is perfect. I think I'll do another row of nails though on that outer strip just to make it nice and secure. And so now the last thing that I need to do is trim the edges because I have that excess overhang and I just need to do that on both sides. Again, I won't be trimming the top, so I just need to do that along the other side too, and then the roof is done and we can work our way down below. All right, so now that we are underneath the roof with the top complete, I'm glad that I've had my dad to help me out because he's pointed out a lot of errors that the previous builder made on the interior. So let's take a look at what the next steps are. So all of these 2x4s, or these joists that are running to support the roof, my dad noticed that they are around 2 feet apart. They should be 16 inches apart, and 2x4s should not be used. You should at least have a 2x6, maybe a 2x8 to give this a lot more rigidity. So what we're going to do to fix this error is we are going to sister a 2x4 next to each one to give us a lot more support. And this piece right here is not even nailed in. it's not even attached to that piece of wood. So we are going to attach that to that 2x4 along with the sister 2x4, and we're going to do a support in that direction to help the load in the middle of this roof. We're going to do a few other bracing, and then we're going to do a cross in the back section to give this shed some lateral support. We're also going to double up a few of the corners as well. This is the only exposed corner. As you can tell, there are only two 2x4s, so I think we're going to add in an additional one in each corner. And a few hours later, we are done with all of this construction. Now, if you weren't able to tell in the time lapse, our nail gun failed on us. So we did this the old-fashioned way, but I'm gonna show you in details what exactly all was done. Now, obviously I explained it earlier, and hopefully from this angle, you can see how much different it is with all of those angled supports. We have the 16-footer running across the top there. Now, this is treated wood. It was about the same price as non-treated wood, so we just went with that being on the roof just to give it a little bit of interior protection there. And with that 16-footer running 7 feet from the edge, that is giving us a lot more load support for that upper half, still giving us a good amount of load support for the rear, but this roof is not going anywhere. We have the sister 2x4s in each corner. We went ahead and closed in that section there, and we have one piece. Instead of doing two, we just have one of the scraps that was left here running across the back just for extra lateral support. So now what we need to do is move on to the exterior skin. As you can tell, that is partly started. We have some gaps over there. I will be moving some of these pieces just depending on how we want them to line up. And we also need to fill in the upper section there. And just like that, we have a pretty much enclosed shed with a few other pieces that I need to work on today. We also went ahead and installed these corner pieces. This is basically bridging the gap between each side, so that way rain or anything else won't get in between the corners. So I did that on each side. We have the entire top section done. What's left to do aside from paint, which I will have to do once I'm completely done, I have to install the soffit for the front and the rear. That's going to allow ventilation to get into the shed without allowing any animals to get into the top. So I have all of that. I need to finish the door today, which shouldn't be too hard. I'll kind of explain how I did that afterwards. It's going to be a pretty simple process, I hope. And then here's a look at the interior. There's a few spots. I have that lighting right there that I need to enclose, which shouldn't be too hard. And we have a pretty good looking shed so far. Last up, what I also need to do is build just a mini ramp with some of the scraps that I have in order to get things in and out. That's a pretty big bump right there. And just over 1 month later, the shed is completely done. So before I go over the cost of finishing the shed and what I think it cost to build it before I got it to start on it, let's take a look at what I've done, because I haven't really explained too much since I've finished it. So there's a few things that I did off of camera that you did not see. After I finished painting it, I figured with the extra paint that I had, I went ahead and painted the ramps just to make them blend in a little bit more. I did the entire base, so all of that wood, even the ends of the 3 posts that are on the side and that whole bottom there, just to blend it in nicely. I even went ahead and added paint to that white soffit. There's a little bit of white showing through it just because it's plastic. It's not really that easy to paint, but it makes it blend in a lot nicer. So I really like how this came out. And the paint color is called Milk Chocolate, and gave it a really cool dark color to it just to blend in with the nature that's around here, being in the woods. I didn't really want it to stick out. So let's move on to this door, because I mentioned earlier that I would show you how I made this door. So I have my lock over here. I went ahead and painted the latch for it too. But this door was very, very easy to make. So looking at the door here, the components that I got basically were the 4 metal brackets that you see, along with the 2 hinges. I bought that off of Amazon. I'll link that down in the description. And this door cost me about $100. The kit was about $25. And I really like the fact that all of these are steel. There's a lot of kits that are metal. These ones are steel. They're going to be a little bit more heavy duty, even though it's on the inside of the door. But I have 5 2x4s and 2 sheets of plywood. That is it. So it was pretty easy to make. Now it is heavy being one solid door. I could have done 2 separate doors. I thought about doing a sliding door too. But with one door, I really like how I was able to completely open it up there, so that way it can stay put. I have a block there. There's also a small support that the door is on, so that way it's not having all the weight just on the hinges alone, and I can get in and out of the shed very easily. So let's move on to the interior now, where I do have a few things in here. It's going to be a little bit dark. Hopefully the light is pretty okay. So I have some scraps here. I plan to build a few shelves on that wall there, just to store any items that I may have. And so now onto the cost to finish this shed. So I went a little bit over budget, spent around $1,200 to finish it the way that you saw it when I first started. So I'm assuming that the previous owner who started building the shed probably spent around $2,500, maybe $3,000. Could be as high as $3,500, just depending on wood prices and when he started building this. So let's say $2,500 to $3,500 plus another $1,200 to finish it. And so I did a little bit of research to see what this would cost. I've seen some pre-built, so you can buy it as is and they deliver it to your house. They were running around $7,000 on average. So I can't complain too much about going over budget with $1,200 to finish this, but being made of wood, it's going to be a lot more durable than a metal shed, which I was planning to try to do. But with all these trees that I have, if something falls on the shed, at least with the wood, it has a little bit of structure to it, so a tree won't go straight through it, depending on the size of the trees here, but it's going to give me a little bit more peace of mind compared to a metal shed. And so there is my new shed. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. This was just over a month-long process, so it wasn't too bad just working on it here and there, but I finally have my shed complete. It looks nice in the background. Again, if you enjoyed today's video, give it a huge thumbs up. Consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. Also, stay tuned for the full time-lapse video that I made on this coming later today. And I'll see you guys in the next video.